Hello?
Hello, Vince.
Hey.
Deputy Von Giesel of the Oxford County Sheriff's Office.
Hey, how are you? Have we met before? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
What can I do for you?
I'm wondering what's going on here because the trespassing. I got a March 23rd court date. I'm wondering because there's no investigation that's been done, and I'm being stripped of my rights here. There's no ethical reasoning for me being arrested from trespassing when I'm addressing an issue at hand in my town as a taxpayer.
All right, Vince, I'm the one that arrested you that night, and I summoned you to go to court. So once you go to court, you'll get your discovery, you'll get all the evidence, you'll get all this stuff for the case then.
Yeah, see, I don't want to be playing that game, so I guess I'm going to have to address this with the court. I'm hoping the Oxford County Sheriff's Department would address the issue because it's an issue that they've contributed to.
I've addressed this issue with you multiple times.
Yeah, but it's unethical. See, nobody who's the investigator or something.
I investigated it. Okay, you were served a trespass notice not to go to the town office.
Unethically.
You went to the town office. And therefore, you were arrested. Plain and simple, it's over with.
It's No, it is not plain and simple at all because it's unethical. The Constitution isn't being...
Call the Attorney General's office, Vince, okay? I'm not going to argue with you on the phone over this matter.
I'm not arguing with you. The Attorney General told me to talk to you guys. So,
okay.
So do I need to... Can you help me set up an appointment with your chief, please?
You can call the office and ask to speak to the sheriff or the chief.
Look, I didn't. So you're the one that arrested me that night and brought me in. I didn't argue with you then either.
Oh, you did the whole way to the jail.
I stated my case and I said how this is unethical and unconstitutional. I still have nerve damage in my thumb right now from the cuffs.
Okay.
But like I said, it's unconstitutional. How come nobody's investigating the case that I've presented of the harassment and the unethical tactics being utilized against me by tyrannical dictators? And that's also from one of the selectmen stating that.
Okay. Well, I don't have any idea with because I'm not the one investigating that crime.
So, but you're putting me out of there because the chief selectman says so. When what the matter says that it's all of the town's employees saying that they don't want me there.
I'm going to tell you the same thing I told you when I arrested you. If you want answers about why they put trespass paperwork on you, and why I arrested you, which I can answer why I arrested you. I arrested you because you were served a no trespass notice. Plain and simple.
Unethically. How come it wasn't investigated why they were saying that I wasn't allowed to be there? You can't strip me of my right to go there as a sheriff and strip me of the right to the Constitution of the United States.
Vince, don't talk. Let me finish talking.
Okay.
Once I'm done talking, you can say your piece, and we can figure it. We can go from there. Okay.
No problem.
Sergeant Ontango, along with myself, served you on behalf of the town of Brownfield no trespass paperwork. That no trespass paperwork was sent to us by Lieutenant Brown, who works for CID with the Oxford County Sheriff's Office. He investigated it. He dealt with that whole thing on their behalf and wanted us to serve you the don't trespass paperwork. You were arrested that night because you violated that no trespass paperwork. Okay? So, if you want to know what was investigated or why it was investigated or why you had no trespass paperwork, whether it's against your rights or anything like that, that has to do with Lieutenant Brown. You have to contact Lieutenant Brown.
Okay.
And talk to him about that. I cannot tell you why.
No, I asked them.
Not a clue.
That's their mistake. They put me through to you. I don't need to be talking to you. You see what I'm saying? That's over our... We're not going to get anywhere, and I'm not arguing with you. What I'm saying is this is undebatable. There's no debate here. Nobody investigated the case. This is just the chief selectman and Rick Emery. It isn't the other selectman that's saying that I'm not allowed. And nor is it any other employee or elected official. And
Again,
well,
I don't know anything about that.
but this
So
is
you
the
would have
thing
to contact.
I need to inform you. You could look it up. The law is that they would have to put that through the town. We would have to have a meeting in the town, and the town would have to vote me out of there. The selectmen have no right whatsoever, and it's unethical. It's illegal.
Well, I can tell you this. What's going to happen? You need to contact Lieutenant Brown and
Okay.
have him figure it out and go from there, because he's the one that dealt with it, not me. Okay?
Yep.
But
No.
if you
Perfect.
if you go to the town office until that trespass paperwork is taken care of, you're gonna continue getting in trouble.
Well, I'll get in trouble, but the trouble's going to rest on the Oxford County Sheriff's Department for not doing their due diligence. That's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. You guys aren't understanding. I'm not holding you guys accountable. I'm attending to the municipalities. The governor told me to do this. The Attorney General told me to do this, and I went to the Oxford County Sheriff's Department before I went to the meeting that I was arrested at. And they said, go to the meeting and do what you have to do. I'm being charged on a different tax map. I went there to put an abatement for my taxes,
Well,
and I'm
then,
being stripped of my right.
Maybe the best thing is when you go to court, whatever court date it is, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you. When you go to the court, plead it in front of the judge.
No, I'm
Let the
gonna.
judge
There,
make the
I
ruling.
have other rights. We don't even have to go that far. I'm just making sure I've attended and let you guys know the issue at hand. I want to make sure I speak with the sheriff or the chief as well. I'm going to talk to Brown first. I left a message with the chief. I'm not messing with you guys at all. Nor have I ever. I'm trying to attend to my civic duties, and I'm being stripped of my right to do so.
Okay.
I've never done nothing wrong. Nobody in town says I'm not allowed there, other than Bill Flynn, the chief selectman, who's in question here, and who's going to be put in front of a jury of my peers as well.
Okay.
But I apologize for. I'm not trying to give you a headache, so I'm going to be giving Brown a headache because it wasn't you. It's Brown that's investigating it and said go ahead and charge Vinny with this because of this, and it resembles this court case. Am I correct?
Yes, he's the one that wanted us to start the trespass paper.
So hopefully I could talk with him and we can make some sense of it. Is the guy a pretty bright guy? He's okay, you think? Have you met him?
I've met him a few times.
Okay.
I mean, fine to me, so.
Okay. I don't think I've met him. That's why when they sent me to you, I've met you, but you're not. I already knew that. I didn't need to speak with you about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then they're telling me.
Yeah, you want Lieutenant Brown.
Okay. Thank
right.
you. Sorry about that, buddy.
Yep. Right.
Hey, have a good one, man.
Goodbye.
You guys want your hash, want your $5,000 in the bank that comes from this grant, and now you need 500. I hear all that stuff. It's a joke when you guys say that's not funny. That's the way it's meant to be. Well, it's a trigger to me because it's not meant to be for you to joke about that because you guys are already been questioned. Your characters are in question about doing silly stuff that come on these topics. They're questioning stuff. Let me just explain something to you. Please be quiet just for a second. Let me explain something. If anybody accuses, no, because you're accusing me of lining my pockets. You're accusing someone. Well, I'm the only one that I'm accusing you of that you did not joke about. Don't joke about. Please be quiet just for a second. Let me explain something. If anybody accuses, no, because you're accusing me of lining my pockets. You're accusing someone. Well, I'm the only one that I'm accusing. That's not debatable. It's not funny. I'm saying it's not funny. We have different sense of humor, though, I guess. I'm just looking for facts, not debatable opinions being continuous debate. Okay? I asked you something about this for the food wars while you're worrying about $5,000 in your pocket hats. I'm passionate about you, and you guys can care less about this Dylan's phone. But I can care less about you. But I care about you. I'm not as long as he wants to come off and pick together a share. We don't need to talk to you. Keep quiet. Go for it. I never stopped you guys that long now. You want to get back to where we were with this force and how we could work together rather than be fighting crybabies? You gotta learn something. This is not your job. Don't act like you guys say that. Look at your attitude. How come you can get like that when I was saying you just sound like you're gonna get on the phone and your mom? That's what you just had. That's not cool. That's good. Let's go home. Yep. Yep. Always want to be out there. Next item on the agenda, department heads. Gonna be a tough act to follow. Wow. Alright, we're on recess, back to the meeting. Okay, we're not done. How many more times do we have to talk about this? I'd just like to make a note that an officer from the Office County Sheriff's Department just removed Mr. Carbone from the building.
A lot of people have been studying politics intelligently. They've been understanding that one of the problems that is that you give some people power and you don't want them to abuse it. How do you give it and limit it at the same time? That's particularly important in the American Revolution, where they have, of course, thrown out the king, an extremely powerful man, because he was bad and he was exceeding his authority. And yet they had fought this war, against this powerful king, and they needed to assemble a lot of power to do it. So they actually want a more powerful government, but they don't want it to abuse them. What I think the wisest of them thought is that every human use of power required to be restrained and directed toward the good, as opposed to self-interest or bad. So one of the ways they went about that was to make the government purely representative. We get to pick the rulers, but we don't rule. So we said in the Declaration of Independence that the king was suspending the legislature and wouldn't let them elect another one. The representatives of the people are not meeting. You see, consent is representation. Now, why would that make for a control?
Because the government doesn't receive its legitimacy without the consent of the others.
Yeah, and it isn't even abstract, right? Government is a monopoly. It's if it's true, as we said before, that politics is natural, then it arises from their gift of speech, which is the classical argument and also the founders' argument about government. Then there's always going to be
Explain something to you, please be quiet just for a second. Let me explain something.
And that's not the king's idea. The king's idea is you're going to have kings. It's in the order of nature. I was born to this. I'm going to be the darn king. And you're going to be the people. And I'm supposed to take care of you, and you're supposed to do what I say. And that's not grounded in the consent of either one of us. We have this station, we're stuck with it. Once you change that and you say, the government can really only do what you say it can do, that limits it drastically. And how is the government established? What's the first step in the establishment of the American government?
Breaking away from the government we were under.
Happened in the, okay, that was good. Happened in the, we have a code. It happened in the what? In the Yeah, we all got that one right. So, so we get the government right. Now we've given consent. Is that enough? What else do we need? Constitution. Wait, because we have to keep giving it, right? You have to give consent to form the government. But then after that, do you need more? Do you need to be saying okay on an ongoing basis? Because if you do, you're going to need a constitution. What was Hitler's constitution like?
Kind of like believe what I say or die.
Yeah, he actually, I don't expect you kids to read my books, so I can quote them. Hitler came to power in 1933, and Hitler wouldn't take the job unless Hindenburg and the leaders of the main political parties would promise to support an enabling act, he called it, that would liberate the government to do whatever it wanted to do. Hindenburg was reluctant about this, and Hitler, very clever man, offered him something. He says, I won't do anything that affects the powers of the presidency. In other words, the one person who I won't touch is you. And so Hindenburg said, okay, right? That itself is a kind of violation of consent, right? And of the rule of law, because now they're not going to live under the same law anymore, right? So Hitler's constitution is Hitler's will. And that'll work if one person gets to make all the decisions. But if a lot of people are going to make the decision, you're going to have some form by which they can indicate authoritatively what they agree to. So if you're going to involve a lot of people in the government, you're going to have a constitution. You're going to have, and you see why the Constitution has to be different from the things that is actually in the law? Because it prescribes the process by which the ordinary laws would be made. It can't be the same as they, right? So, and that is, by the way, implied right through the middle of the Declaration of Independence when they talk about the king messing with the government all the time in the way that he was doing. You see? So, consent requires representation. And representation requires a written way for that to happen. Do you see why you'd have to have a representative form of government if you were going to have a big country? Why is that?
I mean, if you had a democracy, you'd have to have everyone there. There's too many people. It's just
That's right.
A mob rule.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you have been to Washington, D.C. I go often. We have the Kirby Center there. The people coming from California would be at a terrible disadvantage from the people who live in Northern Virginia, right? And so it can't be very big if it's not going to be representative. And since there has to be some mechanism for consent, and since they can't all meet personally, they're going to have to elect some people. Now that we know that consent requires not just agreement that there's going to be a country, but a mechanism so that people can govern, oversee the actions of the government over time. And now that we see that if you're going to have a big country, you're going to have representation, this opens up a whole world, these two things. The founders, it turns out, are really glad that this world that we're about to describe, is open, because what do they think about democracy?
It fails.
And why?
Because the majority ultimately starts to rule. There's no protection of the minority interests.
Becomes tyrannical.
It can't control faction.
Define faction, Christian.
Any group interest that may or may not have the majority.
Emily.
It's also, on top of that, the interest that it has is in violation of somebody else's interest within that group.
Or of the
whole.
Yeah.
the public interest. In the very famous Federalist 10, how do they describe the public interest? There's an expression they use. It's really great.
I think they describe it as the permanent and aggregate interests of the community.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, the permanent and aggregate interest of the community, which would be a separate thing from the particular or temporary interest of any one of us or group. So it's not, by the way, just stopping the government from doing what it wants to the governed. And remember, in a representative system, there's going to be something you call the government, and they're going to be different from the people they represent. That's how we solve the problem that Lily brought up, the problem that the people in California don't have the same chance to get to the meeting as the people in Northern Virginia, right? You're going to appoint them to do it, right? And so one thing representation does is it stops them who are the government from doing stuff to the governed that the governed don't like. So If you have a constitution, you can spread the decisions out over time. By having representation, we've already said, you spread the decisions out over space, right? You can have a bigger country, and everybody can have a say in it, because they don't have to go there all the time. They can all have the same say in it. But also over time. In other words, reason alone of the people must be placed in control of the government. Their passions must be controlled by it. Writes James Madison. That means, by the way, do you see what I just said? The implication of what I just said? I think on this point that I know better than many citizens in their and the majority of the citizens in their worst moments. Aren't I wise, right? Constitution doesn't let me change it just because I think so, or just because I've studied it for a long time. Government is by nature very powerful. It has a monopoly on power. It has to be like that. Representative government requires a society separate from the government, big enough to control that great power.
Well, I think in understanding the First Amendment, the first source of wisdom is to recognize that there are many forms of expression, many forms of speech and writing and utterances that are not protected by the First Amendment, but ironically, there's many forms of conduct that are protected by the First Amendment, and Texas versus Johnson is one of those cases in which pure conduct is protected because it's considered to be the equivalent of expressive conduct or symbolic speech. Hello, my name is Stephen Markman. I've taught constitutional law for many years at Hillsdale College, and during the day I serve as a justice on the Michigan Supreme Court. One should not think of the First Amendment as the most important because it is the First Amendment, because in truth it was only the third of 12 amendments proposed by Congress to the states for ratification in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, with the first two of these amendments eventually failing to secure ratification. It may, however, be viewed as the most important amendment because of its subject matter, in particular its protections for freedom of speech and religion and a free press. In this lecture in our series, we will address a single one of many aspects of the First Amendment's freedom of speech clause, which specifies simply and straightforwardly that the Congress shall not abridge the freedom of speech. At the outset, it's important to understand that the freedom of speech is not one that applies to every conceivable kind of speech or utterance or writing, but it is the freedom of speech, a particular freedom of speech that pre-existed our Constitution and the American experience. The freedom of speech that we enjoy, for example, is a very considerable freedom of speech, almost certainly the broadest in the world, but it does not protect